Personally, I read a lot of what they call DFIR reports. And these are basically reports by organizations that have been breached. And then these are now the post-analysis forensic reports that come out after that. And when you read these reports, you'll end up seeing all the different commands and stuff that the threat actors did while they were on that network. Now, some of them, as I said, may not be mapped out to MITRE, but as you read these things, you can visualize or understand what sort of procedures these threat actors were doing, and then look into your own defenses and see how you can implement and break out. So exactly, you can see this is a Conti leak that was done 3 months ago. And you notice I write TTP, which means tactic, techniques, and procedures, which goes into detail of the sort of commands and basically actually literally the commands that these threat actors would run on your on the target organization. So there is that aspect of people are developing their own, how do I put it, TTPs, tactics, techniques, and procedures to operate offensively or as malicious threat actors. And therefore, the patterns may not be the same as what the Western world would present. So, for example, one of the tactics we found local threat actors using in banks is actually placing, a device in the bank's network. So instead of them like sending a phishing email, they're getting access into like the network rooms, the MDF rooms, and they're actually plugging in, devices into those network cabinets. Of course, that's already a red flag. Why is a bank, for example, I'm not naming any names, but for example, why is a bank's, network cabinet in an exposed area that somebody can reach and plug in devices into? So where I use frameworks like MITRE, because MITRE is an international standard for advanced persistent threats. So these are known threat actors and the known tactics and techniques that they are using. So if an organization implements defense mechanisms or detection mechanisms around that MITRE framework, they would at least eliminate 80% of the attacks that they would be facing, or be able to detect those attacks. Because if an organization is looking to up their cyber defense, one of the baselines they can start working with is at least implementing detections and response rules around the MITRE side. Then you have now these additional things. But as I said, even if I plugged in a laptop into that MDF room, my lateral movement would probably mimic the same tactic that another threat actor would have done. So eventually, if the organization has mapped out these TTPs, they may not see the initial access, which would be the laptop being plugged into the system. But the moment that threat actor tries to now, pivot from that machine into maybe a server or another machine on the network, they will have to run certain commands. And if your network is detecting those sort of, the sensors are detecting those kind of commands, you can now take responsive action moving forward. So one of the key things I would recommend people who are especially looking to get into the defense side of things, look into the MITRE attack framework, because it will give you a lot of insight of what threat actors are doing. So if you're not somebody who has passion in this industry, it can really burn you. But if you have the passion and and please don't make money your main objective in this industry. A lot of people I've spoken to a lot of young people in Kenya, and they were like, oh yeah, cybersecurity, there's money in it. I'm like, yes, there's opportunities, there's a lot you can do, but don't expect tons of money. You hear of conversations out in Europe and in the US of the salaries and stuff like that. It's not the reality on the ground. And mainly that's also because of where our organizations are positioned in terms of their cyber resilience or growth. So they're not yet at a position to appreciate, maybe a SOC analyst, a full-time person sitting in a SOC in the organization.